You're listening to No More Bad Events with your host, Scott Bloom, and guest, Glenn Thayer, the voice of meetings and events.
Welcome to No More Bad Events, a fun and insightful podcast for professional event organizers and for anyone at any level interested in producing nothing but the best events. Each week, we'll talk with legendary event professionals to get an inside look into what they think makes a great event. And in the process, we'll draw out insider secrets, non-traditional approaches, and compelling stories from the most captivating personalities in the business. No More Bad Events is produced and presented by eSpeakers, the most trusted online platform for the best keynote speakers in the world. And I'm your host, Scott Bloom, comedian, event MC, and now your podcast host. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. Thanks for dropping by. For those of you who listen to the podcast on a regular basis, you may have noticed something a little different about our opening. For our first-time listeners, let me explain. It's not really a big deal. We usually begin each episode with an opening quote from the guest, some bit of wisdom or insight that sets up the interview. But since my guest today is also a professional voiceover artist, I thought I'd ask him to lend his voice to the program and give us a professional opening to kick things off. You know, try to class up this little podcast. I mean, it just made sense, especially since my colleague, Glenn Thayer, is also known in the industry as the voice of meetings and events, literally and figuratively. Obviously, his powerful and commanding voice is perfect for his role as a professional master of ceremonies, conference moderator, corporate spokesperson, or live announcer. But his talent doesn't stop there. There's so much more to this event industry veteran. Glenn comes from the production world and has been in the event business for decades. He actually ran an entertainment production company for 20 years. And he was one of those soup to nuts kind of guys. You know, he did everything. He designed the show, spec'd the show, negotiated on behalf of the client, and even wore the headset and called the show. And in the process, he discovered he liked focusing on the content and conversations. And in our conversation today, we'll hear a lot about that. We'll also hear about the art of event design and how to take it to the next level. And we'll explore different formats for engaging the audience. We also discussed how the role of the conference MC can add significant value to a meeting, as well as fun ways to incorporate AI into an event and the importance of creating spaces for networking and relationship building. So get ready to elevate your event game and say goodbye to bad events and say hello to outstanding events with event designer, conference moderator, and our special No More Bad Events guest announcer, Glenn Thayer. So I know one of your monikers is the voice of meetings and events. So your voice is very important. You work as a conference MC and a moderator. Let's get into events, and we'll eventually talk a little bit about event design because I know you have a lot to say about that. But from your experience, you know, helming these general session, these events, what do you believe are the key elements that make a meeting or an event successful?
Well, there's a whole lot. I mean, that's a bag of worms right there in itself. What makes a conference or event successful truly depends on, did you meet the goals and objectives of that event? I mean, most of them, if we're talking corporate conferences, even association conferences, there's business metrics that have to be met. So number one, fiscally, is it viable? Did you hit your goals and objectives? Yes or no? If it's yes, we hit our goals and objectives, we nailed it, wonderful, that's successful. So in the business world, that's how that's really, and that's what I think you and I are on the same page with that. We're dealing with clients that their business depends on this conference. If it's a sales kickoff, what are the salespeople leaving with? I mean, yes, there is the rah part where it's like, we want people to be motivated. Yeah, motivation gets you so far, right? It'll get you so far. People are excited. Wonderful. Next week comes, they're back in the office and nothing has changed. Have you hit all the goals and objectives? The other thing is looking at stakeholders. What do all the stakeholders have to say? I mean, you got to look at it from a standpoint of breaking down an event for each and every stakeholder group. What does the executives, what do they want out of the event? What does sales want out of the event? What does finance want out of the event? What do the attendees want out of the event? And if you're broken into different profiles, what do each of those profiles want out of the event? And then if you're looking at that, if you have had success and you have hit the benchmarks for each one of those stakeholders, your event is a success.
So we're both work as MCs, we work as moderators. When you're collaborating with these planners, they have what you said, those metrics in mind. What are you offering to them? What do you bring to the table that elevates their event?
Usually what happens is I get a phone call saying, hey, we need an MC. Great. Tell me about the event. And I ask a million questions, just like you. If somebody sends you an email, it's like, well, let's get on a Zoom. Let's have a phone conversation. Let's get together and find out what you need. Because number one, I want to make sure I'm a good fit for you. And really, when they go, what makes you different? What makes me different is I have a production background. I come from production. I mean, I started things up. Oh, goodness. Let's see. I ran an entertainment production company for 20 years. So I was running award shows, designing like the Better Business Bureau's Excellence Awards and things like that. And I would go produce soup to nuts. And in those, I would not be on stage.
But you'd be the voiceover guy for sure, bring people up, right?
Yeah, I would do the VOG, but a lot of times for some of these, they're charity events, they're going to have a news anchor that's going to do that. But I'll be in back, I'll be calling the show. So I'll sit in back and I'll call the show. I spec the show. I negotiate on behalf of the client. I have done all of that. And when I moved to Colorado, my business partner had moved to Colorado, and I came out, did the marketing research and went, you know what? Actually, this is a good idea to come out and move out here. So I decided, I made the move from LA, came out here, and we took our entertainment production basically to the next level. And we were able to do a lot of Native American shows, producing award shows, conferences. If somebody came in and says, hey, we need some equipment for the day. We were like the small time production company. Because of course, when I moved here a month and a half after I moved here, 9/11 hit. So all the business that we had booked went away. So our entire business model went away, and we have to make some money. What are we going to do? I said, well, we have all the equipment. Why don't we put on really high end social events? And we'll do corporate social events. We'll do high-end weddings. We'll do those, and we'll just double down on that and do everything local. And that really took it to the next level. And what I ended up doing is saying, we will produce your entire holiday event. And it's like, you're giving away awards. Oh, yeah, we do our sales awards. Wonderful. How would you like that to feel more like the Academy Awards? Instead of it's like, okay, so top salesperson goes to Bill. You have 1,000 people in this room. We should have some fanfare and let's build it up. So we started producing these large format award shows, and I would host it. And that's kind of how I came from the production side of things and still hosted. So somebody could hire me as the MC, the producer. If somebody needed a DJ, I could even fill that in. So I could do the entire, all the pieces of it. And then pretty much doubled down in 2010 and said, I'm getting rid of all the production business and just focusing on content, because I really enjoyed the content and the conversations. So ideally, like a great event for me would be, hey, we're going to have somebody speak for 10 minutes, and then you're going to interview them for another 30 minutes. And a lot of it was anything from political celebrities, celebrities, executives, you name it. And that's where I really found I enjoyed talking with people and finding out what they know that I don't know.
That's a great format, as well. We're also, always looking for different ways to engage the audience, and having speaker after speaker might not always be effective, as occasionally you sit down and have an interview. I find, and you probably find this too, that these presenters, some of them, the executives, don't present all the time, so they don't have those chops, and that's a hard thing to get on stage, whether you're using a prompter or not. to command an audience. And I find, and you probably have found this as well, that an interview format works real well because they get to relax, a little bit more. So, have you found that to be an effective format for you to get the most out of a presenter?
Well, I think there's a lot of different ways to look at it. If number one, again, I always have to go back to, how are we programming the general session? And I'm assuming general sessions here. That's right. Really what it is. And it's like, how are we programming it? Are we programming with all the goals and objectives and the outcomes for each stakeholder group? Again, I always like coming back to that because I always have to ask, is this section adding value? Is this part adding value? And they go, well, no. Okay, then we need to eliminate it. And the part that comes up a lot is an executive, it's usually a CEO or a president, and they say they need more face time. And it's like, okay, what does that mean? And they say, well, they need to feel like they're connecting with the audience, that the employees see them, they're not stuck in the ivory tower, but they're there with everybody. They're leading. They're here with everyone, leading the charge. So my question is, do you need to make them more human? And usually it's like, oh, that would be awesome. Yes, we need to make them more human so employees feel that they're accessible. I said, well, the best way to do that. Sit down with them and have a fireside chat for 10 minutes. And most of the time, once you break it down, you go, well, take their talking points. What are the talking points that they have? Give me those talking points. I will turn those talking points into questions. And then from those questions, we're going to make your executive a human being that's relatable to every single person in that audience. It takes all the pressure off of them. So that way they don't have to worry about it. They already know the answers to everything. So I'm not going to throw there's no curveball here. I'm hired to make the executive look good. So that's where I'm coming from. How do we make them more human? How do we find things that are interesting that nobody, it's like, hey, didn't know you played the ukulele. Well, we have one right here for you. It's
right. Throw in some general knowledge about the person, get them to tell some stories, and also get them to relax. Yes, the fireside chat, or even, you're mentioning even like a Today Show type format where they're sitting. I find that to be, very effective. I think what's great about working with you as an MC and also as a consultant is you're truly having a partnership with the company that you're working with, and they probably rely on you for your expertise, your instincts, and just overall strategy on how to develop and design an effective event. What have you noticed lately? What are some of the trends or new approaches in event design that people should consider implementing?
Well, consider, again, and I love going back to the Today Show.
Mm-hmm.
And if you haven't seen the Today Show in a while, sit down and put it on at the office. Put it on at the home office. It's pretty much the same form. You can watch an hour of it and you're good. However, look at the formatting. Look at what happens throughout the entire thing. It keeps your interest because there's different things that are happening. What is it? 8 minutes? We have about 8 minutes and we have to change things up because otherwise people will get bored. And so if you think of it from an event design standpoint, you have something going on the main stage. And that main stage piece, maybe 3 minutes. Well, now you toss to a video that's 2 minutes. Now, what if that video is behind the scenes? Or you toss to somebody else who might be your co-MC sitting in the back that goes, hey, Scott, so yeah, we're backstage right now. I am with the president, Bill Smith. He's going to be coming on later. Bill, what can we expect in your remarks? And Bill goes through and has his 3 bullet points, boom, boom, and boom. It's like, great. So we're really excited to come. As you can see, most people don't get to see back here. Let's spin the camera around. And now we have a behind the scenes shot. And it's like, okay, well, that's it for back here, but we'll be coming back for you soon. Scott, back to you. And now you're on stage, coming back in, going, what's the next piece? Now you get to pump up whatever's happening tonight. What's the evening event? And then go into the introduction of whatever's happening. Let's say it's a keynote. Well, here's the interesting thing is you talk about introductions. Introductions have to happen, right? And I'm finding speakers are being even more peculiar about their introductions and how they need to be crafted. And my thought process on especially keynotes, if you're in a breakout session, that's a little bit different. But if you're a keynote, you're on the main stage, your bio and all of your information is in the program. So people can read all about you and know everything about you. If you're a celebrity, People already know who you are. They're there to listen to what you have to say or see you or get a picture, or get an autograph, whatever it might be. Your introduction really is 10 to 30 seconds. And I look at it from going back again, Today Show, Oprah, any news type show. You have 10 to 30 seconds. They set you up and they say, best-selling author, or the book of this, this, and this, and here's what you're here to learn, and here they are. And I'm sure your thought process is similar to mine, where what we need to do as we introduce somebody is let people know why they're here and what problem that they're solving. In essence, we are the people that are setting the listening in the room. We're the ones that are going out going, this is why you have to pay attention to this, because this is going to change your business. This is going to change the way you do business over the next 3 years. And you're setting the stage for it. Most speakers don't have a good bio, especially if the bio is written by speakers bureaus. And I've seen a lot of those that come in and they're either written by a PR company and they're 5 minutes long. I introduced Karl Rove. Oh goodness, this was a few years ago. And his introduction was 5 minutes long. And I'm like, there's no way. And he was coming on for like 15 minutes and then I was doing a half-hour interview with him. I worked with the client. Client's like, yeah, we can't actually fight that battle. And I'm like, okay, I've got too much on my plate. I'm not going to fight it. It's not. This scripting for this specific one was very tight. There was a lot of legals constantly going over the script and everything.
Oh, I see. Mm-hmm.
So you're on prompter. It's like, you're on teleprompter for everything. Luckily, I was able to go, hey, can I put everything in my own words? And they're like, sure. And it's like, okay, so that worked. Again, after legal looked at it. But I introduced Karl. I was like, hey, we really need to cut this down. Like, no, they said there's no changing it. It's there for a reason. I'm like, I get it. The intro was all about how he's worked with Democrats and worked with Republicans. And it's like, yeah, he works with everybody. It's like that kind of thing. I'm like, I get it. Well, this is on the heels of the chairman of the Fed speaking via video. And the entire time, the chairman of the Fed is speaking like this. Well, you'll get to know that the interest rates are going to be rising by 0.5% over the next 6 months. You'll also see that the banks are going to start looking at different ways. I felt like I was listening to Stephen Wright.
Stephen Wright. You actually were doing a Stephen Wright impression. That's what I thought of.
I mean, it was just this straight monotone for 20 minutes. And I'm just like, put a bullet in me. So I'm trying to jazz up the introduction, right? And so I finish and Karl comes out on stage and he's like, oh, wow, Glenn, man. He's like, you could have shortened that thing up.
Right.
Threw me under the bus. He's like, there were parts in there that I felt like I was listening to the chairman of the Fed again. Just like, and I came back out there and I'm like, Karl, thanks for throwing me under the bus, man. Appreciate it.
Well, he probably has no idea what the bio is going to be. It's his people who've, and they don't want to deal with it. But I mean, yes. Well, that was him being funny in the moment, which was great. But I know that you don't like that feeling, being thrown under the bus.
But that's what we're here for, though. Yeah. That's the other thing that...
to absorb any of the problems.
Whatever happens, we're here to do it. And guess what? If a speaker decides to make fun, you take it.
Mm-hmm.
That's our job.
That's why they're hiring us, that we can take either problems, make them better. We add that spontaneity that, hey, this really is live. I mean, everyone else, as I said, a lot of these people who are speaking are not professionals. They don't get to do it all the time. And being professionals, we have a little bit more lightness to us. We can just deal with things in the moment. And I think those are those electric moments that really excite an audience when they're going, hey, he didn't plan to do that with that guy. That just sort of happened. And that's why we're there. Is to, not only create an event or to helm an event where we're connecting to the audience, but also being that through line that could handle anything that comes our way.
You mentioned that, handling anything that comes our way. I had run this awards event, and it is an annual event for about 5 years. And I remember the first year I did it, they came up to me and they said, okay, so we're honoring one of the chairs. They have two different organizations that they work with. And I have this client. In the first year I did their conference, I was told that the chair of the council chair, had died the previous week of a heart attack. I was like, okay. And they go, so what we're doing is we've done a memorial video for him. I said, great. And they go, we'd like to play that. And then when we're done, we'd like you to have a toast and toast to him. And I said, okay. I said, I can absolutely do that. And then in the back of my head, I'm thinking, how do I take it from something? Because this will kill. Anytime you do something like that, it kills the vibe. And then I asked him, like, well, how old was he? Well, he was 43. I'm like, okay. Like, all right. So not expect. They go, no, not at all. Not at all. I'm like, well, tell me about him. And like, oh, he was like everybody loved him. I was like, all right. So there's probably nothing that I can say that because I'd never had a personal relationship with him either. So I don't have anything there. So I let it sit. I was like, all right, I'm going to let it slide and see where we go and it kind of pick it up after that. And I did have some things that were kind of in there to bring the energy back up and kind of get people back into a more festive mood. We play the video and I watched the video and this guy he is the person, as I'm watching the video, I realize he's the person that puts all the parties together for the organization. He does all the late night party suites and everything else. He's like, at my parties, I would call him the instigator.
Right.
This guy was loved by everyone. And his video was just so much fun. Like he's having a great time. They had several instances where he's quoting Wayne's World. I was like, interesting. So as soon as they finish the video up and it says, here's the memorial and here's the dates of how long he was alive. And he stops and I'm like, and now we need to raise a toast to Bill. And I was like, and as he would say, party on, Wayne. And I just waited. And everybody in the audience goes, party on, Garth.
Oh, wow.
Done.
Right.
And I was like,
that's great.
That was one of those where you're just like, I have no idea if this is going to work. And if this does not work, I'm screwed. Because I have no idea. It's like I have no way to get out of that. And it was just one of those rare moments where you feel it in the moment going, this is the right thing to say. And I actually had no idea because I hadn't seen the video. And so this is the first time as the video's playing, it's the first time I see it. And I'm like, oh, that's who he is. He's this like super cool guy. And it worked perfect. It was just like one of those, whew, I'm glad that worked.
We did it. We did it.
It's just so many different things. It's like you look at how people can change events. Look at all the different ways of delivering content. So if you want to think of it from a standpoint as a general session, what are all the different things you can do? You can have a panel discussion. You can have a keynote. You can do a fireside chat. You have executive interviews. You have behind the scenes. You can do
interviews in the audience.
Interviews in the audience. You can have your sponsors as thought leaders. Those are very specific. It's not, you have to have the right people in the right place. You can have that. You can have video content that comes in from somewhere else. Obviously now with technology, anybody can be in there. AI, what we've been doing with AI with award shows where you don't really want people to speak, we come up with AI generated award show acceptance speeches. And
it's hilarious.
And what they get to do is they get to choose. You can either read your AI generated acceptance speech, or you can just say thank you and wave and take your picture and go off. And the funny thing is as of late, we've had a lot of people that have just go, oh no, I'll do the AI generated one.
But does the audience know that that's the gag? It's AI generated, or that's not the gag?
No, absolutely. I say that up front, and I said, so when we have people come, when you're coming up for your award, and I say this, I said, when you come up for your award,
you have a choice
to either use an AI generated acceptance speech that we have right here, or you can just say thank you and wave, and we'll take the pictures with everybody. So the audience already knows, they're in on it, and they're like, ooh, what are they going to choose? And the first person, like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm good. They're like, but they stop after the picture. They go, well, can you read it? And I was like, sure, I'll read it for you, and read it. And some of them were spot on. Other ones were like, why are we talking about Academy Awards? It's like, I'd like to thank the Academy for this welding certificate. Or, it's
right.
Weird stuff happens with it. But you're like, no, we want the weird because that makes it funny.
I think it's a great idea. What I'm getting from this conversation, we started off with talking about your work as, an event designer and just the concept of event design. That term really means that everything is thought out. All the different moments throughout the program have been thought about, are purposeful. And I think the event professionals that are listening here today have to realize that it's just not element. We just stick it together. There has to be an overall concept, an idea, a vision. And with that vision, we keep on building on hitting our goals, hitting our objectives.
We talk, it's like, why do people go to meetings? Why do people go to events? Why do people go to conferences? Why do people go to award shows? They're there to meet people and build relationships and solidify relationships. Well, how is that done? That's done over breaking bread. So you're having a meal with them, or it's at the bar, or it's a hallway conversation when you're leaving a keynote or leaving a breakout and you go, well, what did you think about that? I'm like, yeah, I disagreed with them. I think there's a better way to execute this and roll this out. And now you have a conversation and you're building relationships, which leads me to a fact that I have been seeing consistently is that a lot of our nighttime events that we have tons of music that's way too loud. And so it doesn't enable people to listen to each other and have conversations. Now, if you want to dance and everything, great. Have a place where people can dance and you've got that great band. Absolutely. But what when people want to go out and go, I want to go to the bar and have a drink with you and find out more? You want to keep them in the event space. So create some different options for people so that they can connect. Constantly incorporating ways to connect throughout the entire conference and intentionally do that. Food. I dislike having a keynote speaker at dinner or at lunch because what I want to do is talk to the people that I'm sitting at the table with. I want to build a relationship with those people. And if someone is giving me content, I can't build that relationship. So be very, very careful when you are designing your event on what's happening. And I think a lot of event professionals and meeting professionals really feel pressure to add more content and add more value. And the problem is you can only take so much value because you can't incorporate it. You have to be able to take what you've heard and then go, all right, this is what I learned, but I need to talk with someone else about it to kind of decompress it and go, well, do I agree with it? Do I not agree with it? Are there better ways to do it? I think we need more time to connect instead of worrying about pushing more and more content.
Absolutely. And I think that's what I've been hearing the most when I talk to people these days on the podcast is, as you're talking about connection and building relationships, but also having that space, that open time to connect with your colleagues. And as you said, reinforce some of the information, ask questions. You're there to network, you're there to connect, but you're also there to learn. And sometimes learning is talking about it too. So I think what people are realizing when you talk about bringing value, there's the content, and then there's the value of bringing us all together. And that needs to breathe. So, Glenn, I think everyone has loved not just listening to the content of this podcast, but also just listening to your voice. I'm luckily listening to this on headset, and you have a fantastic voice, not only just for live events, but I'm sure also for broadcast. It'd be great to sort of end this podcast with one of your great VOs, a little voiceover to close out this particular episode. Do you have anything?
Oh, let's see. You've been listening to No More Bad Events with your host, Scott Bloom, and guest, Glenn Thayer, the voice of meetings and events.
That's perfect. Thanks, Glenn. That's it for now. Thanks once again to eSpeakers, the #1 way to find your next perfect speaker. With the deepest catalog of professionals available, you can be assured that the speaker you book will be the absolute best speaker based on your goals, bar none. I've been your host, Scott Bloom, corporate event MC and comedic keynote speaker. And of course, your connoisseur of connections. Oh, by the way, and if you're interested, you can book me for your next event on eSpeakers Marketplace at espeakers.com/marketplace. And if you like what you heard, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows. If you loved what you heard, drop us a review and don't forget to share with your friends. Thanks so much for listening. Now go out and make your event a great one.